This one's a lot of fun. I love stuff like this. So the McLaren rear wing is flexing down, essentially creating, a little bit of DRS. Now, this flexi wings have been a topic in F1 for the better part of 20 years, where
and
NASCAR. We have watched people design materials that allow the wing at a certain amount of load as it goes over 170 miles an hour or whatever, start to flatten out, because at that load, you know that you're actually trying to have the least amount of drag and not create downforce, and then as you brake, it suddenly releases that load and goes into full downforce mode. This has been going on forever, so much so that for many years and still to this day, they do flexi wing tests. They do it on the front. They do it on the rear. They do it all the places. But teams continue to find gaps in the rules that allow them to do these flexible wings, and this is just always a moving target in F1. There was a lot of people on Twitter, these lovely Twitter accounts that have no idea what they're talking about, being like, "Oh my God, this is insane." Well, it's like, this has been here for 20 years, so this is nothing new. If the FIA considers it to be too much, they will then enact another flexible wing test or improve the flexible wing test, or they'll add the amount of pressure that the flexible wing test gets under, and they will evolve and make McLaren change it going forward. But I do love to see this, because I think it's the ingenuity that continues to be in F1.
I love first of all, I don't want to completely, since you gave me a hard time about Connor Zilic, and I knew it before it was cool, and then you just did the same thing with the flexi wings to all the Gen Z, Twitter and TikTok and Instagram F1 fans who are new fans that don't know what was, what we lived through, us old guys.
Hey, man. You didn't even know
I'm not
going to
make fun of them, because yes, this is one of those oldest trick in the book things now, similar to tire pressures trying to leak air, things like that are just like, you're always going to be trying to find ways to get away with this. And you said it right? Like that the rule book is a moving target, right? So the teams are always identifying some new opportunity to be able to do something that is a proven technology that is just a tale as old as time, right? They're going to keep trying to find ways to manipulate flexibility in the car to their advantage. And I love it. I love seeing stuff like that. Like, you have flexible wings on the front, on the back. In NASCAR, let's not forget that we mess with flexible suspension, right?
Yep.
With the the truck arms on Xfinity cars, previously Cup cars, but on the Xfinity cars, the truck arms are basically made out of spring steel, right?
Yep.
And torqued to a certain torque spec so that they're tight enough that they don't fall off, but they're loose enough that they move.
Yep.
Right? And those are all so that the body can move in a certain... What's that?
That's one of the hardest parts about driving. Yeah, well, it's the hardest.
Because they move so much.
You have to get used to the rear end moving into the corner like you're spinning out, and you have to adjust that. It's wild.
Right. And then, in NASCAR stuff, we've had windshields that cave in, right?
Yep. Body deformations,
you have rear windows that cave in. You have all kinds of body panels, right? The right side of the cars, we try to get them to cave in and flatten out. In super speedways, NASCAR, puts a weight on the spoilers to make sure that the spoilers don't flex, right? Because at a super speedway, you'd want the spoiler to lay back. Everybody will always, anytime you're talking about spoilers at super speedways, you'll talk about the time that Michael Waltrip won the truck race at Daytona, making a last lap pass because his spoiler broke, right? Which is, just phenomenal. Mm-hmm. So this is all just so interesting. And I know I just made a very NASCAR-focused response to something that's happening in F1 right now, but that's just the beauty of motorsports engineering, and it's cool and it's fascinating. And McLaren is obviously, now that we're seeing this 3 months later than it probably has been happening. And it probably has a lot to do with where their speed has come from.
Yep.
And, F1 might make a rule change, it sounds like. I don't know. Maybe. They're reviewing it. Who knows?
The rule. Yeah, they'll evolve the tech process, whatever. They do this all the time. It happens all the time. And to your point, it's just this is part of motorsports ingenuity. Yeah. Yep. The car... There is a lot of performance to be found in the car. and that is just the basis of motorsports.
I'll cap this off. You made me think of something that made me want to cap off this conversation. Is this stuff is exciting, and you can hear it in my voice that like this is the ingenuity that we love about motorsports.
Yep.
But it is also the thing that makes racing cost tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. Right?
Yep.
So when NASCAR pursued a next-gen car that is a quote-unquote spec car, right, where you're not allowed to manipulate the car, you're not manufacturing any components, you're not designing any components, it's essentially to eliminate this. And it's not the ingenuity that they want to eliminate, it's just the expense that comes along with it, right? Because just to make this wing flex the way that McLaren made it flex probably took hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably millions of dollars of engineering resources, sim time, design resources, CAD drawings, and core processors that are running CFD models 24/7 to optimize. You know what I mean? Like, and then the manufacturing of it, right? Like building the carbon components yourself, testing them, stress testing them so that they flex the right amount, just like they did in the sim, but not flex so much that they break. It's probably millions of dollars was spent just on this wing alone, and that is why motorsports cost so much money. And so
I'm stopping you, but because I want to add something. What's crazy about that is with the modern day F1 budget cap, when they're making decisions like this, they have to think about, hey, can we get the result we need if we're going to allocate millions to this idea that we think we can do this? Are we going to get the result we need, and could we have a long enough run with it that we can make up the points deficit to Red Bull and and the speed deficit to them to go after this world championship in knowing that most likely it's going to get eventually found and banned or whatever, or to that flip side, that's the modern day F1 decision making that you have to make in engineering and between the budget team and that sort of thing to say, hey, we want to do this. This is how it's going to work, that sort of thing. But also think about the tracks they've gone to as of late. Since probably they've had their big performance uptick, let's think about some of these tracks. You have Silverstone, high-speed track. This would have been really helpful. Monza was in there, super helpful. Zandvoort, yeah, it's a high downforce track, but once again, if you can get less drag down the straightaways you have there, which are pretty long, that could be helpful. And then you go to Baku, which is like a Monza in terms of low downforce, and even though it's a street course, they could, even to get even more like analytical with it, choosing the area of the season to unleash this.
So that's a really good point, but and I think that the spending cap helps that, or at least makes it interesting and more clear to define, and keeps the teams from spending too much. But the teams, whether it's F1 teams or NASCAR teams today, have always had to make that choice because spending cap or no spending cap, they only have so much money to spend, right? Even Mercedes, right? And even Hendrick Motorsports still only has so much money to spend. I know our perception of them as a fan or as competitors has been, they got an unlimited budget. They don't have an unlimited budget. They have a limited budget. It just might be 10 times the size of your budget, but they still only have so much money to spend. So the teams have always made these decisions. I think I've referenced a sim. I know I have personally with you. I don't know if we've talked about it on this podcast, but with a Chevy team, several years ago in the sim, we did a sensitivity test, is what they called it, where we checked, they created a whole matrix of all these different sensitivities that make the cars go faster, right? More horsepower, downforce, drag, CG, weight, actual weight, just all kinds of different sensitivities, big knobs they call it, right? Ooh, that's a good visual for the YouTube photos on YouTube.
That looks, big
knobs to turn.
Definitely clipped.
Big knobs to turn, right, up and down to see, to figure out. We spent a whole day in the sim doing this to figure out exactly what you just said, right? We have $1 million to spend. Should we spend it finding 5 horsepower? Should we spend it finding 100 pounds of downforce? Should we spend it finding an inch of CG to lower? Should we spend it by reducing 10 horsepower of drag? Like, where should we spend our $1 million, right? this was a decade ago in the sim, long before any kind of spending cap. Obviously, NASCAR doesn't have a spending cap, but this was with a team that had a perceived unlimited budget, right? And they still had to do R&D to figure out where do we spend our next $1 million.
Weird. I thought NASCAR was just, you just kind of showed up, man, and drove around in circles.
Aren't the cars all the same?
Yeah, man. They look great. And then NASCAR is just stupid. You just drive in the circle. No. Anyway.